My name is Kate Ramsey, and I'm a criminal defense attorney. I love Progress Texas because we need to meet people where they are, and Progress Texas is messaging to people where they are at and on issues that are important to me.
Kate's also co-hosting a great podcast lately. Do check out Mission Texas after we're done this morning. It's Friday, Good Friday, April 3rd, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our no paywall podcasts and digital media. We make Texas politics easy to understand and to participate in. Lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, but your support for fact-based reporting hands the mic to millions of Texans. Thanks so much to DK Wilkerson, Lanny DeGuire, and Janet Gilmore for their ongoing sustaining support. Y'all, there's been no shortage of outrage lately, as we know. And that hasn't really changed for today either, but occasionally, especially on a Good Friday heading into Easter weekend, I think it's a good morning start to draw things back to where they ought to be for people of political mindset in the great state of Texas. And that is that what we all ultimately want is calm and happiness and hope for ourselves and our families. We don't focus on that outrage for outrage's sake, and certainly not for listens or clicks, but rather to keep our focus on the change we want to see happen via our democratic process, the wrongs we want to see righted, the opportunities denied to become opportunities fulfilled. Central to that is our economy, and central to that, especially here in Texas, but really around the globe, is energy. KVUTV in Austin is noting that with gas prices up, economic growth stagnating, and the job market slowing as well, the case for change should be an easy one for progressives to make in a state now run by Republicans, since any of you Gen Z types were even walking around here. Economist Ray Perryman of the Perryman Group talked to KVU. He says Trump's tariffs artificially boosting consumer prices and Trump's immigration crackdown causing shortages of workers across multiple industries have caused national economic disruption, with impacts felt most immediately and most acutely right here in Texas. Not to mention Trump's reckless and stupid war of choice in Iran. Jason Wheeler at WFAA in Dallas says that while you and I are gritting our teeth at the gas pump, the petroleum sector is in a state of flux at the moment, facing a paradox of record profits alongside extreme volatility. After a year of negative sentiment, the Dallas Federal Reserve's latest survey of over 100 oil executives in Texas, Louisiana, and New Mexico shows a dramatic shift in how they see their industry's prospects, with responses far more favorable this first quarter of 2026 than they were throughout last year. Optimism due to rising demand, increased drilling activity, and yes, surging prices have those oil executives all smiles. But while they're licking their chops, these same oil executives report that while the war in Iran is boosting their immediate profits and production capacity, it remains a dangerous wild card that creates historic levels of uncertainty. By this same poll, that metric is at the third highest level it's hit in nearly a decade, trailing only the 2020 pandemic and the 2023 banking crisis. There's worry that Donald Trump and thus the American oil industry may have already lost control of the situation in the Middle East, which makes long-term planning and forecasting impossible. Uncertainty and investment are a terrible match, posing significant implications for the Texas economy and for consumer energy costs across the nation. In short, Texas oil executives are bullish about the present moment, but entirely uncertain about what's going to happen next. They're definitely pleased by this next bit, and the news that the Texas coast and the Gulf of Mexico are a complete afterthought to the energy sector from an environmental perspective should be no surprise. Shiara Eisner at NPR says that earlier this week, a committee of Trump administration officials voted unanimously to exempt oil and gas operations in the Gulf of Mexico from the Endangered Species Act, in a rare move removing protections for several animals, most notably the Rice's whale, which is on the brink of extinction with only 51 individuals remaining. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth initiated this vote by citing national security concerns to Interior Secretary Doug Burgum, arguing that domestic energy is essential for military power. Until this move, oil companies have been required to follow specific safety measures, such as vessel speed limits and noise restrictions to avoid harming marine life in the Gulf. But those precautions appear to be at an end. Conservation and pro-democracy groups are opposing. Naturally, they argue that Hegseth's national security justification is a manufactured legal loophole, which is a fancy and diplomatic way to say bullshit. The American Petroleum Institute likes to claim that the American oil industry maintains a balance between energy needs and wildlife concerns, but a glance at the actual record shows that big oil firms like Chevron and ExxonMobil regularly spend millions of dollars lobbying against any environmental restrictions that might slow down their money machine even a little. This exemption is sweeping and applies not only to the rice as well, but to all listed endangered species in the Gulf of Mexico, including sea turtles and manatees, potentially for decades to come. While technologies exist to limit the impact of seismic noise on marine life, most companies don't bother. They continue to use traditional systems that don't protect those animals. This is what Drill Baby Drill looks like, and this is yet another reason for Texas progressives to double down for this November. Let's talk about Pam Bondi on our way out this Friday. Pretty juicy stuff, and I, for one, will never forget that recent congressional hearing in which Pam Bondi was bowing before Donald Trump with such zealous force. I was afraid she might bang her head on the floor. Moira Donegan at The Guardian has a great take, and that's that the firing of Pam Bondi after just over a year on the job stems from Donald Trump's dissatisfaction with simple personal idolatry. He's frustrated that his Justice Department has thus far failed to convict and imprison his political enemies, and its failure to silence the persistent conversation and cries for justice surrounding the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Bondi is a scapegoat and an attempted sacrificial lamb meant to do something, anything, to relieve Trump's mounting struggles, but it's not going to work, considering that it's clear his fear of justice in regard to the Epstein files is central to his kicking of Pam Bondi to the curb. Since his illegal war in Iran also hasn't done the trick, let's refocus and get up to date on the Epstein files, shall we? The Trump Justice Department, regardless of its appointed leadership, is in open defiance of a congressional law requiring the full release of Epstein's records. They have only made half of those files public, and those have been submitted with significant redactions, protecting powerful individuals and withholding all testimony regarding allegations of sexual assault against Trump himself. Todd Blanche, the interim attorney general that Trump has put in place, let's recall, has served as Trump's personal lawyer and was the envoy sent to hold 2 days of closed-door meetings with Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell in Florida last summer, after which she was transferred to the relatively posh federal prison camp at Bryan, Texas, where she resides today. Seems likely an accommodation meant to keep Maxwell quiet. Blanche has been very publicly very close to the effort to protect Trump from justice in the Epstein matter, and his filling in for Pam Bondi does very little to silence the conversation about that scandal. Rather, it throws gas on the fire. Pam Bondi's legacy at the U.S. Justice Department will be her facilitating of its complete transition from an independent institution dedicated to equal enforcement of the law into a political tool tasked with targeting individuals seen by the president as a threat or an encumbrance. Bondi was perfectly and fully willing to serve Trump's whims, but even the most dedicated lackey can't conjure evidence out of thin air. That lack of actual evidence has led to that string of failed indictments, all of which have stuck in Trump's considerable craw. The message to any Trump follower is clear. Regardless of your loyalty, regardless of your zeal, ultimately, you are expendable. Progress Texas is proud to be the official media partner of the Texas Nature and Clean Energy Summit, hosted by our friends at Environment Texas. This is happening this next Tuesday, April 7th, at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in Austin. We're going to be hearing from an esteemed group of leaders, including State Rep Aaron Zwiener, Dr. Michael Weber of UT Austin, Cyrus Reed of Sierra Club's Lone Star chapter, Andy Sampson, longtime Executive Director of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, Stacy Ortego of the National Wildlife Federation, and lots more. See the link in the show notes to RSVP. It is important to note that there are not one but two Texas elections approaching next month. Municipal city-level elections will happen on May 2nd, and the statewide primary runoffs will happen on May 26th. Early voting in municipal elections starts April 20th. As for the midterm runoffs, your registration deadline is April 27th, and early voting in the runoff will start on May the 18th. More on all of this at our carefully crafted voting information website, govotetexas.org. And for our DFW friends here at Progress Texas, we're getting ready for our 16th anniversary celebration happening in Dallas with drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save the date, Tuesday, June 16th, and see the link in the show notes to reserve your spot. While you're at the website, hit our web store. It's ready for you to grab the merch to match your progressive values. Newly released Humans Against Abbott, The All Means All, and Revolution shirts, stickers, and buttons. Hit the web store at progresstexas.org and support your favorite podcast network today. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Friday, April 3rd, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Our mission at Progress Texas is to improve and save Texans' lives by acting on our shared, bold, progressive values, and that starts with countering the billionaire and corporate-funded conservative disinformation machine. Progress Texas is an independent, nonprofit, rapid response media organization. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media in action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Happy Easter. We'll see you again on Monday.